Hey, what's up everybody? So for those that don't know, I'll give a very brief introduction. My name is Rick. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm trying to recover. I don't want to use the word recovery because I don't think that I have settled there yet. I'm still in active addiction. I'm only a couple of days sober. But I am part of AA, I am part of STARS group, I am seeing the doctor, the GP a little bit more readily. But I'm an alcoholic, and alcohol has taken everything from me. So for those that don't follow the channel, for those that do, have heard this 100 times before, but I've lost my wife of over 20 years. I've lost my health, my finances, and the house that you see around me now is the house that needs to be sold in order to pay my ex off. So, not that I'll be homeless. I'm sure I'll be able to afford to rent somewhere, but a complete change in lifestyle. That's for certain. And as I go to AA, so my thought process was always, if you forget about alcohol, you'll stop, that'll help you stop drinking it. And the more I go to AA and the more I go to STARS, they say maybe share and talk about the problems and kind of resonate with the fact that it was ridiculous, it was crazy, and that's why you shouldn't continue it, so that's what I'm doing. So I'm going through just a series of stories now about what I think has led me up to this point, and why I feel so much shame and guilt and anger and anxiety and everything that comes along with it. So I wanted to tell you about a story, 2014. So in 2014, I got married, but a friend of mine got married also. And this was my kind of childhood friend. So I'd not seen him for a few years, but this guy we went to school with, them people that from your past, and you can not see them for 20 years and then you can see them and it's like you'd never been apart. He's that kind of friend, right? So obviously, even though I'd not seen him for a few years, I get this call out of the blue. Rick, do you wanna, or would you please be my best man? You can't say no, can you? Although the anxiety and I've like done the best man thing like 3 or 4 times now, which is weird because I think I am a good guy, but I don't come across well sometimes. But some people must like me, right? So, and I'm one of 2 best men. So I'm best man, like the old best man, and then obviously his new set of friends now, he picked one of them for the people that he hangs around with now. So I was one of 2. The other 50% of this kind of best man duo was the opposite to me. He had his life sorted, didn't drink, didn't mess around, got his work done, kids, whereas I had the same principles, but my life was just like this. I would drink, gamble, He was organised, I was just, my life was just wavy shit, really. It was just a mess. We had to obviously plan his stag do and sort his speeches out for the wedding and a few other bits. Anyway, I won't talk about the stag do now because that's a completely different story. We went to Benidorm, and what a mess I made of that. I went off track for about 30 hours where no one could find me, and I ended up on a street somewhere, and God knows. But again, that's just because of the alcohol. I was trying to push as much down everybody's throat as possible, and then when they'd had enough at say 1 o'clock in the morning, I would buy another 10 shots, and then one or two people said, "Yep, I'll have it," bang, and then when some people that don't drink had enough, I smashed theirs, and it's just sheer gluttony. And for those that are alcoholics or even binge drinkers, know what that's like. And I went off grid, and I didn't ruin the stag do, but I certainly didn't add anything to it, and put myself in a dangerous position, because I got found on a street. But anyway, let's talk about the wedding, right? So the wedding. So me and the other half of the best man, we're trying to liaise with each other just so we don't tell the same kind of jokes and things like that. And he's like trying to email me, speak to me. I'm drinking all the time. I'm just taking it like it's some kind of joke. I'm like, it's 6 months away, mate. What we're worrying about? I'm just pushing everything forward, and I don't know. I must have just been a nightmare to work with in that situation, Anyway, long story short, we sort all that out. We get to the wedding. Sorry, not the wedding. We go for the suit hire. Even on the suit hire, right? I was so... It's mad, really. Even when we're going for the suit hire, I had to get, not drunk, but I had to have alcohol in my system in order to just go for the suit fitting, right? And I just wanted to get to the pub, and those guys were there for serious business. Let's sort everything at 1 second. Sorry, I just had to cut that off. The neighbour came back, and obviously I'm filming in the window, so I'm a bit conscious that people think there's a 43-year-old guy on the internet telling stories about himself being an alcoholic. So yeah, let's go back. So yeah, in the suit fitting and everything like that, I was just desperate to just get more alcohol. Wasn't bothered about anything other than taking away. I don't know. I just felt really uncomfortable, right? And that's why we drink, isn't it? So anyway, let's fast forward to the wedding day, right? So this wedding was on it was on some kind of, I forget now, I think it was like a golf complex with nice big chalets and, quite posh, certainly posh by my standards, that's for certain. Not cheap. For some reason, and I can't remember why, I don't know if me and my wife were going on holiday at some point, like a day or something after, but for some reason we didn't book one of the chalets. So the chalets were open to obviously the bride and groom, the bride and groom's immediate parents, mums and dads, and then the best men and maybe a bridesmaid or two, I don't know. They had to be paid for by us, which is fair enough, but for some reason we didn't take one. So we actually drove to the venue in the morning. So we drove there in the morning. We went, and the other best man said to us, "Put your stuff in our room and get it at the end of the night," because obviously we had bags and stuff like that. I snuck in vodka, because I couldn't guarantee when I would be able to get my first drink, and I was so nervous. I had to do a speech to 150 people, So I snuck a bottle of vodka in my bag. We get changed, we go to the rehearsals, we do everything like this. I'm sneaking out. I've got a like a little flask. I had a little flask with vodka in, right? So we're already going through the first few hours of rehearsals, and I'm already drinking, right? Because I'm so nervous, and I'm like, well, I just need to. I kept thinking to myself, if I drink through the rehearsals and I'll gain some confidence, as soon as I feel like I've nailed it, I won't need to drink later because I'll know what I'm doing. I'll have nailed it. I've got that confidence. But as we know, we chase this, don't we? We chase like this, and then it goes like this, and we chase, and we're just chasing all the time, right? We do the rehearsals, fine. We go put our suits on, fine. Everybody starts to come in, fine. We're sitting at the top table, right? You got the groom and the family there. I'm on the right-hand side. The other best man's on the left-hand side. They come, they put some wine on the table. Obviously, it's free, it's unlimited, but within reason, right? I drink a few big glasses. And I can feel myself, and I'm just like, okay, the speech is in an hour, you know. So I'm thinking, just get yourself to where you feel good and happy, where you can talk to anybody, and then chill out. That doesn't happen. It's not even close to what happens. I have one large glass of white wine, and then they come round with red wine. I have a glass of red wine, another glass of white wine, another glass of red wine. Before I know it, I'm feeling really good. And I got this speech written out, right, that I'd printed. Right? And I'm trying to rehearse it. And the other guy does his first couple of speeches. I get up to do mine. By this point, the alcohol has taken over. I lose all control. I start talking about somebody's mum, but in like a funny way that I thought was funny. How the delivery came across, I don't know. But the last thing I remember was me pointing to somebody's, like, these are two families that I'd never met, right? I talk to someone, or I point someone out in the crowd. I think there's a laugh. Everything else goes blank. I then look at my wife. So somebody came to the table. My wife was out on the front. Somebody comes to the table and says, like, points to me, which I later got told was that it was one of the bar staff that said, is that your husband? To which she replied, yes. And she said, I'm cutting him off for a few hours. Right. So we fumble our way through. I can't remember any more speeches. So when the groom's dad got up and whatever and did a speech, I can't remember any of that, right? I then go to stand up. I fall over. I collapse. Right. And people are like, what the fuck? So then obviously people are talking about you. So my wife must be horrified. They come over, they grab me, they pick me up. I become limbless, like lifeless almost. My feet are dragging and all this kind of things. And it's like I drank so much trying to chase this feeling of immortality almost, that I was chasing so quick that it caught up with me and then just flatlined me, KO'd me, right? So they drag me and they get some of the bigger guys, right, from different families to kind of up my armpits and take me. And they said, well, where shall we take him? And obviously my things were in the other best man's room. So they said, no, take him back to our room, put him to sleep for a few hours. And hopefully after we've all eaten and, you know, things like that, he can come out for the night time. So obviously that's shameful to me now, because when I think back on it, my wife had to go and sit there and eat, you know, the meal and talk to people and stuff like that. And I would have been the talk of, you know, a lot of people about how I reacted and been so drunk. And, you know, so I have a lot of shame for for the situation that I put her in. Anyway, I go back. They take me into this really lovely room, big, large bed, and there was like a chaise longue, there was like a couch right at the side. And they said, don't put him on the bed, obviously, because that's where they were sleeping. They said, put him on the chaise longue, and we'll come and get him in a few hours. We'll check on him every hour, but we'll try and get him back to the party so he doesn't miss everything, right? Anyway, a couple of hours later, the best man, his wife, she comes back to the room to check on me. So they took it in turns, right, just to check on me. So I'm asleep, dead in this room. They're coming back every hour to check on me. She comes back, and as she walks through the door, I've turned onto my back, right, and I'm throwing up, and the sick is kind of going up and coming back down. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm choking on my own sick, right, and I'm like, but obviously I'm kind of asleep almost. She obviously gets me. I'd only seen her twice in my life as well, you know. She rags me off the chaise longue and she's hitting me on the back, and then she's like screaming for help, right? So then a couple more people come in, and then there's like a courtyard, and people gather around the courtyard. My wife comes in, the groom comes in, the other best man comes in, right? They kind of sort me out, get the sick out of my mouth, let me lie there for a little bit. I'm just paralytic, right? There's no chance I'm making it back anywhere. They wanted to call the ambulance. They didn't, because I'd kind of not regained consciousness, but I wasn't throwing up into my own mouth again at this point. And then obviously they realised then it was about I think it was about 7 o'clock at night, they realised that even after all that sleep, there's no chance that I'm making it anywhere, right? The only thing for me to do is go home. Bearing in mind, I'd ruined this, you know, the other best man and his wife. I'd ruined their experience as well, because I'd been sick everywhere, you know. So even after the party or after the wedding, they've got to come back and clear the sick up and all this kind of stuff. I think my wife tried to do it, but they were just like, look, just get Rick home, yeah. Just get him home, get him safe. And I can remember I went to stand up. I was falling all over the place, right? Paralytic. Two of the bigger guys came in again. They lifted me out to the car park. My wife had drove, right? They take me out. And one thing I do remember, because I remember little bits. So the bits that I remember, and then my wife filled me in on the rest. But I remember my mum and dad, they were invited to the night part of the wedding, not the daytime part, right? And so they'd arrived at 7 o'clock. They were walking in as I was being dragged out under two guys, sick everywhere. You know, sick all down this suit. And my mum, I just remember my mum going, Ricky. And I was like, you know, and obviously my ex-wife was like, it's all right, I'm just taking a moment. He's all right, honestly, he's fine. Go and enjoy. Go in the car, get in the car. I'm falling all over the place. I throw up in the car, come home, ended up getting dragged to bed by two guys. My wife went and then dropped the people back off. Just an absolute mess I was. My parents obviously stayed for an hour out of courtesy because they'd been invited, but they didn't want to be there either. They go home, and when I woke up in the morning, can you just imagine the guilt and the shame, and it was absolutely mind-numbing. I remember waking up and I was still drunk. So, you know, sometimes when you drink that much, you're still drunk when you wake up. I was still drunk, right? Because I'd probably consumed about, I don't know, over the course of the day, a litre of wine, or a 700 CL and 2-3 bottles of wine or something, I don't know. But I was paralytic anyway. And when I woke up, I just thought I was drunk, enjoyed the whole night and got home. Like you do at weddings, you know. Can't remember much of the wedding, but you know you weren't too bad. And I woke up, and as soon as my wife, because she was watching me sleep, right? And as I woke up, or as my eyes opened, her eyes were looking at me, and she said, "You've got some apologising to do today, mate." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she says, "What do I mean?" She said, "Have you got any fucking idea of what you did yesterday?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know I had a few too many beers," but she was like, "A few too many beers?" She's like, "Are you actually insane?" And then obviously she explained everything to me, and then bits start to come back in my head, and she explained everything. And I can remember actually in the morning I said, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear it, you know. And when I woke up, I got dressed, I came downstairs. It's like I knew, but I didn't know the finite details, right? And I put my shoes on, just put an old t-shirt on, old hoodie on. And she's like, where are you going? And I'm like, I need a drink. And I went to the shop and I brought a bottle of wine. And she's like, you're just unbelievable. Just unbelievable. And but that helped me bring me to a state where I could at least deal with hearing what I was about to hear. And, you know, we spoke, and I had to then make plans to go round to everybody and apologise. And they humoured me a little bit, you know. They said, no, you weren't too bad. Because I'm not a violent person when I'm drunk, you know. I think that the whole story could have become a lot worse if I'd had tried to fight somebody, or, you know, chucked pint glasses or got violent. But I'm not a violent person. I've never had a fight in my life. I am so placid, you know, and a kind person when I'm not in the grips of addiction, you know. And they were just like, yeah, everybody found the speech funny, you know, it was all right. Yeah, you drank a little bit too much, but it happens to the best of us and all this kind of stuff. It wasn't that. Because when I got back, and I spoke to my wife and I said, oh, you know, they said that it weren't that bad. She was like, trust me, that's not what they were saying to me while you was throwing up all over yourself in somebody else's hotel room. You know, so I have no one to blame but myself, but you can imagine the amount of guilt and shame that brings on a person. But as I say, that's one of many. Too many stories similar, you know. As I've said, I'll probably talk about the time in the Dominican, you know, when I got took back by armed guards in front of two families that I didn't know, and I ended up face down in a kids' swimming pool. Zero control, just fucking zero control. So anyway, as I say, these stories aren't to make light-hearted kind of fun and jokes about drinking. These are the realities of what we do. And, you know, because that mistake cost me a lot in terms of mental health, shame, guilt. You know, when we make these mistakes, they live with us. That was 2014, and it cripples me today when I think about it, you know. So easier said than done, but it's best not to get yourself in those positions to start with, right? But that's part of the journey. So it was 11 years ago, so I was like mid-30s. Not mid-30s, 32 I was. You know, it's not like I was making these kind of mistakes when I was making them in my late teens, and I was making them in my early 20s and my mid-20s, you know. I mean, I don't make those kind of errors now, but I still haven't learned from that drinking, you know. I know the collapse of what's happened in my life, and yet I still can't currently beat that addiction, you know. So it is what it is, right? Best thing I can do now is accept the mistakes that I've made and try and move forward positively going forward. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've all got stories very, very similar. But just think about what we used to do. It's mad. It's crazy. You don't just ruin your own life. You ruin experiences and things for many more people than just yourself, you know. So okay, anyway, that's enough for today. I shall see you all soon. See you later.